joining us for Indianapolis this week. We're going to talk politics in just a minute, but we start with the extraordinary weekend weather and that unprecedented tornado outbreak. We've seen a lot of damage there in Kokomo. A tornado packing winds of 152 miles an hour, slamming into the city, damaging or destroying more than 30 buildings there, leaving hundreds of people without a place to stay, and cleanup and rebuilding that will likely take months. A similar story over in Montgomery County. A tornado with winds there around 120 miles an hour hit just southeast of Crawfordsville. Emergency management there reporting 30 homes and businesses with damage. Luckily, no serious injuries from the 8 reported tornadoes across the state. The storm was big enough to pull Governor Mike Pence off the campaign trail and back to the Hoosier State. Pence personally going to Kokomo and Mace to tour the damage and talk with the victims there. Came after he and Donald Trump repeatedly criticized President Obama for not going immediately to Louisiana to see the flood damage in Baton Rouge.
Walking through the neighborhood across the highway, it's just very moving to me to talk to these family members who were in their homes, and to see these homes virtually completely destroyed, but because of people's quick thinking, because of a good early warning system here locally. No serious injuries, no loss of lives. That's a miracle, and it's a testament to good common sense by Hoosiers.
I sat down with John Erickson at the Indiana Department of Homeland Security to get insight into the state's response in the wake of those tornadoes and the long road ahead.
Amazed and grateful.
We'll get to what amazed Indiana's Department of Homeland Security in a second. John Erickson taking time with Indianapolis This Week to break down the state's response to Wednesday's string of tornadoes spread across central Indiana.
This was not something that was predicted as a high possibility. We knew there was severe weather coming into the area. We did not know it was going to jump up and create the tornadoes that it did, the severe weather that it did. We were obviously watching it. We were aware of it, but it surprised a lot of us in its intensity. We have a lot of good partners who drill on this. So we were able to get people into our emergency operations center quickly, and we had people in the field. We have people in the field constantly, and so we had people to different communities quickly to see if there were assistance points that we could help with.
Several days now after the storms, Erickson says the state agencies worked seamlessly with local first responders and volunteers before, during, and after the tornadoes cut through.
Personally, the first thing obviously that they go through is disbelief and shock that something has happened to their home, that something has happened to their vehicles, to their possessions. And it's very common to have disorientation, to get depressed. But the best thing to do is stay connected to local services, reach out to friends, reach out to your faith community, and let people know what your need is, because the more you can stay connected to those groups, the better off you're going to be, rather than trying to simply go it alone.
Erickson says the communities hardest hit will need to rely on each other going forward to check in on neighbors during what will surely be a long road ahead.
First of all, our first responders did a great job. They're well trained, they know their areas, and they do their job well. When we get involved, first of all, we check in with them constantly to see if they need our assistance. At some point, they can get overwhelmed, and so, or they may need certain areas of assistance. For instance, state police went to Howard County to help with traffic and security. We provided some pet shelters. One was from Madison County and the other was from Indiana Board of Animal Health. But we helped with some coordination on that. We provided some lighting for security purposes and also for workers to continue to work in the evening hours. There's a lot of challenges, and each situation is different. What we have to be ready for, we need to be available so that if local responders need something from us, we can do our best to provide it quickly.
But amidst the stunning scenes of damage and destruction, lives weren't lost, and that brings us back to what Erickson was amazed about.
Amazed and grateful that there weren't deaths. We have no reported deaths as of right now, and that there were only minor injuries that are being reported. I put it down to, in some cases, good fortune, in other cases, common sense. a lot of people went to their basements, a lot of people took cover in the way that they were supposed to, and that, it's going to protect you in those times. It's the best thing that you can do.
And going forward, surely one day more tornadoes on the horizon. The takeaways so far from these storms and Indiana's reaction to them.
I will tell you, the things that we've seen, again, in this very, very short time period right after these storms is that we know what we're doing, and our locals are trained very well, and that it looks like people know how to take cover, people know how to react in these types of situations, and that's a very, very good thing, that they're able to take cover when necessary, that they use common sense, and that things worked as well as they could. You can't predict storms, you can't predict tornadoes. The best thing you can do is take action.
Welcome back to Indianapolis This Week. We go back to politics now in the race for the White House. Donald Trump appearing to shift his policy on immigration this week, suggesting midweek that there could be a softening of his stance to deport all undocumented immigrants. The next day, though, Trump told CNN there would be no legal status for anyone in the country illegally. This week, Trump's Indiana campaign opened its new office and promised a vigorous campaign against Hillary Clinton.
I'm telling you, we're going to be on Hillary like a fat boy on a muffin.
And let's welcome in the vice chairman for the Trump-Pence campaign here in Indiana, Tony Samuel. Tony, good to see you as always.
Jason, thank you for having me.
Trump called Clinton a bigot. Clinton called Trump a racist this week. Is this where this election cycle, this campaign is going?
Clinton is certainly being as desperate as you can get, and things haven't been working for her over the last couple of weeks. We've seen a change in the polls. We've seen a change a little bit in the policy initiatives that are coming out from Mr. Trump. He's got her on the ropes. I think she's very desperate. What he did say was that her policies are bigoted against the African American and Hispanic and inner city folks, and I agree with that completely. What you've seen over the last several decades is a decline in America's inner cities. He's offering a plan to change that, and she's not. I think she relies on those voters to come out and vote for her, but doesn't offer them any real economic opportunities, and that's what we've seen. So there's a difference in the verbiage going back and forth. He's talking about her policies that are failed. She's sinking into the gutter with attacks, personal attacks that are completely false on him.
Let's talk about Trump's immigration plan now. He had built up a big coalition, of course, through the primaries with the Build a Wall and the deportation police, etc. A lot of people saying that there's been a softening over the past week. He is saying it is a hardening going forward. Where is Trump's immigration plan at this point, and what is it an indication of, if anything, that there's this fluctuation with that policy right now?
The indication is that he's doing his due diligence. He's taking his time. He's getting it right. It's going to be a comprehensive plan. He's meeting with his Hispanic Advisory Council. He's met with them more than once. That will continue. He'll have the full plan out in the next week to 2 weeks. But I think the important thing is here's a leader that is doing the right thing, studying the issue from every angle, and what you'll see is a strong plan, not a change in what he's been saying, but the best way to accomplish his goals. So it'll still be a plan that talks about increasing our border security, enforcing the laws, not letting illegal immigrants in, and taking care of the American worker first.
When Governor Pence joined Trump on the ticket, Trump had joked at the time that if he doesn't win, he can now blame Mike Pence. What do you think about the job that Mike Pence has done out there so far?
It's been a tremendous asset from day one, and what's great to see is there's a great chemistry there. I think there's a great trust between them, a bond that's already been formed, and that will continue. So these are two great leaders. You've got Donald Trump with great business experience and great just life experience in building up and being a leader and building up what he's done in his different enterprises. And then you've got Mike Pence, who's been a leader, an effective leader at the executive level in government, and that can work with Congress, that knows how to navigate Washington, D.C., and then has a great comprehension of world affairs. So you've got a a combined force that's just a great team, a great ticket for us.
Corey Lewandowski got Trump through the primaries. Paul Manafort, of course, got him through the convention. Can Kellyanne Conway now deliver coming to November?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think what we're seeing is that the answer to that is yes. I mean, the poll numbers have already changed. He's ahead in Florida now. He's within the margin of error in several of the states that he was behind just a week or two ago. The message is on target. The campaign has always been efficient and lean, and that continues, although they've added some key positions. There's a lot of structure. There's a great policy team in place that's working to get the policy messages correct, as we talked about earlier on the immigration issue. So yeah, Kellyanne Conway and the team is doing a phenomenal job. I'm happy to be a part of it, and I get to be in on phone calls with that national team and work with them closely, so I can see the changes. I guess I should say the evolution, and just getting better and stronger, and at the right time with 2 months or 75 days left.
And finally, take us into the early for Indiana plan.
Yeah.
Polls show that Trump is up big over Clinton here, but you're not taking it for granted.
Not taking it for granted. The goal here is that there is no chance for anybody to, somewhere in Clinton's team to think, oh, let's go after Indiana. We'll go to small towns, we'll go to big towns, and meet with folks, get out yard signs, register people to vote, encourage them to vote early, that kind of thing. So we're going to make sure that we have a big win in November, and that we're the first state on the board for the Trump-Pence ticket.
Well, and welcome back to Indianapolis This Week. We turn now to the race for Senate and those questions over exactly where Evan Bayh lives. He says his home's a condo on the north side of Indianapolis, but Republicans continue to point to evidence he actually lives full-time in Washington, D.C. Rafael Sanchez is with Republican candidate Todd Young.
Joining us now is Congressman Todd Young. Welcome to the program. Good to have you.
Thank you, Rafael.
Evan Bayh, your opponent on the Democratic side.
Yes.
There's an issue of residency with him.
That's right.
Should he drop out?
This is really something for the voters to decide. This is really about character in the end. Evan Bayh's misleading voters intentionally about where he lives because he doesn't want us to know what he's become. He's become a partisan, casting the deciding vote for Obamacare. He's become a creature of Washington, D.C., a Washington lobbyist. He really took the money and ran after voting for Obamacare in 2010.
This issue of residency is personal to you because your opponent on the Republican side, Marlin Stutzman, tried the same thing on you. You were able to vindicated on that issue.
I live here in the state of
but
Indiana.
you fought that, but that became an issue as well. Is this something that you think is just worthy of discussion?
Absolutely. This is an issue of character. Evan Bayh is intentionally misleading Hoosiers about where he lives because he doesn't want us to know what he's become. He's become a D.C. lobbyist. He cast the deciding vote for Obamacare. Most Hoosiers don't know that, and he continues to deceive Hoosiers, and so that's why this is so fundamental.
And so should he drop out? Because obviously if you believe that he doesn't live here and he's not being honest with Hoosier voters, does he need to say, listen...
He needs to be defeated is really what needs to happen. And so that's my objective here.
And so what's the message then? On what issues will you take to the voters that will allow you to then possibly be victorious in this race?
We'll demonstrate that Evan Bayh is out of touch and has become out of touch with Hoosiers. Obamacare. Hoosiers pleaded with Evan Bayh to vote against Obamacare. He said it was going to bring down insurance rates. We've recently seen that's not the case. So he didn't listen to them. He voted for Obamacare. Actually voted with Barack Obama 96% of the time when the two of them were in the Senate together. And so he didn't listen to Hoosiers, but within weeks of leaving the U.S. Senate, he took the money and ran. He cashed in on his public service, lobbying to give people relief from Obamacare. That should be a fundamental issue. His vote for a carbon tax, which would decimate Indiana's manufacturing economy, that will be an issue of this election. His votes for Dodd-Frank legislation, which has increased the cost of borrowing and hurt job creation and wages in this state, that will be an issue. So Evan Bayh has really lost touch with Indiana.
Respond to one of the ads that the former governor is airing against you. On the issue of carriers, you know, that company plans to phase out jobs over the next 3 years, but he says, on one hand, you say you support the carrier workers,
I do.
But on the other hand, he claims in his ad that you're taking money from United Technologies, the parent company.
Sure, the very company that Evan Bayh also took money from. But what I support is regulatory relief from companies like Carrier. One of the main reasons they've had challenges is the regulations coming out of Washington, D.C. Regulations from some of these sweeping partisan bills like Obamacare that Evan By supported. And the REINS Act, something I put forward, actually supported in a bipartisan way, would cause us, members of Congress, U.S. senators, to consult with the American people to vote on these major regulations before they actually take effect, putting Hoosiers back in control as opposed to Washington bureaucrats.
Thank you so much for your time. We always appreciate it. Please come back on the program.
Our thanks to you both. We want to welcome in Marion County's Democratic Chairman Joel Miller and our favorite conservative commentator Abdul Hakim Shabazz. And Joel, let's start with you. He calls it a question of character about where Evan Bayh lives. You get to bat leadoff today.
Well, I think it's obvious that Hoosiers know Evan Bayh, and Hoosiers know the character of Evan Bayh. Todd Young lost this election the moment Evan Bayh signed up, and he knows it, and he's flailing now. Remember, this is an old play from an old playbook for the GOP. They did the same thing to their own Dick Lugar, and now they're trying it with Evan Bayh. The fact is that Hoosiers know Evan Bayh, and Hoosiers know that this just isn't a legitimate attack.
Abdul, is it legitimate?
Well, Hoosiers may know Evan Bayh, but I don't think even Evan Bayh knows exactly where Evan Bayh lives. Doing a television interview up in Lafayette, when the reporter asked Evan Bayh, can you give us your address in Indianapolis, Evan Bayh could not give him his Indianapolis address. We're not talking about your landline phone number that nobody ever uses anymore. We're talking about your physical address, which Evan Bayh didn't know. Is that enough in itself to be a problem? Maybe not necessarily, but throw that in, with Evan Bayh saying, I'm leaving because of all the Washington dysfunction. It's still there. He was a lobbyist while he was gone. The Obamacare that he voted for, that the premiums are continuing to go through the roof. By the way, they go through the roof right around election time. So I think all these things in the aggregate bring us some serious questions that Evan needs to ask. Hoosiers may know Evan Bayh, but once again, Evan Bayh can't even remember his own address.
Democrat Kip, too, though, has said that the same arguments didn't work against Dan Coates several years back. Can they work this time?
2016 is an entirely different creature than 2010. Lobbyists in 2016 is basically a four-letter word, with so many people, Democrats and Republicans, being just so fed up and so annoyed with Washington, D.C. I think this time the allegations may have a little bit more sticking power than it did in 2010.
Polls show that Evan Bayh's got a relatively substantial lead over Todd Young. Is that evidence that Hoosiers simply don't care about these issues and attacks?
Well, it's a couple of things. One, Hoosiers trust Evan Bayh. Evan Bayh has been a great servant for the state of Indiana. The other piece is what you just heard from Abdul was the kitchen sink being launched from a mortar fire at Evan Bayh, because it's all that they've got. Todd Young's been essentially cut off by the Republican Senate Leadership Committee. The only thing that's going now on television is attack ads on Evan Bayh. We have no idea who Todd Young is, what he stands for, other than the fact that they just keep attacking Evan Bayh. I think he threw out 4 different things he tried to attack Senator Bayh on. None of them are going to stick.
These aren't attacks. These are all true. I mean, name one thing that I said that's not true.
Well, the fact is they don't have any ideas, and they don't.
Which means everything I said, the fact that you won't answer the question says that everything I just said is true. Otherwise, you'd have had a response to each one of those particular allegations, that Evan can't remember his own Indianapolis address, voted for Obamacare premiums that are going through the roof. The Department of Insurance just is about to certify, those insurance rates. Evan, left the Senate to go become a lobbyist. Which one of those things are not true?
Which one of the things that I said were inaccurate? That Todd Young's been essentially cut off, hasn't received a dime from the Senate Leadership Committee. It's all negative on TV. Nobody has a clue who Todd Young is. The polling shows that. He really doesn't have anything to offer. Hoosiers are not going to vote against Evan Bayh with nothing to offer. Period. It's not going to happen.
Let's jump to the governor's race quickly now. Poll numbers show that race really too close to call at this point. What puts John Gregg ahead come November?
The thing that puts John Gregg ahead is he's a better servant. He's actually been elected to office. They're going to see he has a record to run on. I'm going to agree with that. John Gregg has been a strong leader. When he was in the legislature, Eric Holcomb has been a political hack his whole life. Now, I'll tell you, I appreciate political hacks. I'm one. I don't intend to run for office. But I have to say that I don't think Hoosiers are going to vote for someone who's never really served.
Abdul?
Well, you got to think about this. The Monmouth poll, once again, showed like a 1 percentage point lead. I'll go back to what I've said on this program before. John Gregg has been running for this office basically for the last 6 years. He is fundamentally tied with someone that most Hoosiers don't know yet but are about to learn real fast, real quick, because the Holcomb people are launching this weekend a major television ad blitz that's going to run all the way through September. So don't be surprised if you see the question being, who is Eric Holcomb to can John Gregg, keep up with the massive television stuff that's coming. So, I mean, It's interesting that, John Gregg is, he was a public servant of the record, yeah, but John Gregg also voted to give him, his wife, his ex-wife, and the kids lifetime health insurance, on the taxpayer's dime. And these are things that are going to have to pop up. By the time it's all said and done, they'll probably wish Mike Pence was still running for governor.
Abdul knows how to fill time right up to the end. He gets the last word.
Sure.
Abdul Hakim Shabazz, Joe Miller.